We should talk about the turbulence too, but this brings up for me listening to you. When you're working, do you have moments that are a little more quiet and thought out, maybe as you put the tape down, or I don't know what those moments are, versus moments that are more turbulent, perhaps that you're moving and paying attention to your music? Or tell us how you work. Just lead us through a work
Yeah,
session.
I think the one way I work is I keep this big, I call it my atlas, and layering, as you can kind of get the sense from the word, the layer, it's all about the layers. So I began to try to get a little more methodical, because you know how sometimes you might do a piece and you go, how did I do that? Like you're trying to recall it. And I thought, well, just write it down. So I just started writing down like an ingredients in a recipe, just started writing down the layers. So it could be something like graphite drawing, ballpoint pen, taping, paint, masking fluid, photographic transfer. It can go on, and 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 what was fun is I began to see in the layers I could shift the layers. So if I was taping as the third step, I could try taping as the first step and move it around a little. So that kind of thinking or strategizing is calming in a way, because you're trying to put some structure into something that's quite intuitive and quite you really are entering the unknown many times in my process, where you know you get more into the flow and you start picking up the materials and working, and you sort of enter this place where your thinking mind goes away and you just are responding to what's in front of you. But there's other times where it's really important that the thinking mind is taking a little is taking over. So that's where
Sounds right and left brain to me.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and that you go back and
And I
forth.
think taping has become like drawing for me in a funny way, because I cut my tape in different lengths. It's sort of meditative, and then laying it on is like drawing, and it's a slower part of the process. It slows me down. I do a lot of sitting and looking. That slows me down because sometimes a piece needs to talk to you a little bit. Like it's responding, and you need to listen. Um, and it's going to take as long as it's going to take what it takes.
Sometimes your marks just seem like they with the paint and the strokes and the plaster particularly, and what I want to find out about your tools too, but uh, that you don't want to reveal. Sometimes there's been some interesting history that you really want to bring to the front that you reveal. Sometimes it seems to me that you're concealing, so it's kind of the revealing, concealing, and the history. It's a markage of time in a way, and some of the marks. Okay, I have to say, just compositionally, having done, compositional. Sometimes the marks will bring a color to another part of the canvas that really helps balance it, or brings it to an edge that gives it weight, even though it's a small mark. And sometimes you do that with tape, and sometimes you do that with paint. And and to me, I want to get into color next, because I think the emotive part of your painting is conveyed through the color. And I think, to me, you're bringing, I would call it, emotions, or the certain type of energy that color and emotions can create. You're bringing it to the fore, or you're concealing it. And I think, especially when you use the white, the plaster and the white, and it covers and allows the bleeds through, that's some of the most interesting parts, I think, of what's the history and what you build on. So I think that's kind of what I was getting to. If it's done intuitively, if you're thinking about it, if it goes that right left brain back and forth, that you so
working with the taping and burying a lot of elements is like painting backwards, because you don't see the end until the end, right? You're not seeing how is all, because imagine like I've got a lot of color going on underneath a ground. I'll put some taping, which is a masking, it's covering something. And then I use a liquid masking fluid sometimes to create a rounder pour. And then I might cover the whole thing with plaster. And then the scary part is, as I pull through, I have no idea how those colors and compositions are going to work with what's already on the surface. So it is, and it's that element of surprise, I think, that I find super exciting.
so
Yeah. So one thing I really like about these is they have this incredible sense of expansion. They could just all keep on going, and they go both directions, which is a really tough thing to do. And when you look at them first, you think, oh, they're broken. But then the more you look at them, you realize they're just part of, they're showing you part of this energetic web. And so I know you touched on the concept of labyrinths and how those work at Still Point. Do you have like an underlying spiritual practice that you do that's part of your studio practice and part of making these?
that's a great question.
That's a good question. So in the Italian-American milieu, I was exposed at a very young age to Catholicism and the rituals of the Mass and the incense. And I think those early experiences certainly impacted me in two ways. That ritual was important, and that there was a certain time. This was a different time than the everyday, and that a sense of that there is something bigger, greater than myself. So those were two things that I've carried into my life. And yes, I think prayer, meditation, that time of stillness each day is vital to the practice. Yeah, to that, creating that space. And I think in the end, I hope the work somehow is healing, somehow. That there's a quality of transformation. It's a tough word, but regeneration that I experience. So out of struggle, out of conflict, can arise.
Yeah. There's a lot of wholeness and balance and light and clarity out of a lot of mark making and process.
Yeah.
So I think that does model that kind of energetic quality in these. It's very beautiful, very healing.
Thank you, Kim.
Yeah.
That's the hope.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Are you able to stick around for a little bit?
Yes.
Or want to have other questions?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.